Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode in the Aqeedah series, Islamic Matters of Belief. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. So we come to just finishing off this line which we looked at last time. So we are now on talking about the prophethood and the attributes of prophets, the obligatory attributes that a prophet must have. And we saw in the author's poem أرسل أنبياء ذوي فطانة بالصدق والتبليغ والأمانة. So we saw that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets who are fatana, clever intelligence, so they are intelligent, possessing intelligence, بالصدق, they are honest, conveyor of the message, at-tabligh. So the opposite was, if they're not intelligent, they're quite opposite of that in terms of intelligence. And that is not befitting of a prophet, nor is to lie, because they have this great task in this of delivering the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they need to be the ones who are honest, conveyor of it, so they don't just keep it to themselves, but they actually convey it and deliver it to who it is for delivery. As well as amana. So today the last part was amana, we didn't see last time. So they're trustworthy. So it comes in the Quran, Inni lakum rasulun amin. I am to you a trustworthy messenger. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent prophets as those who are entrusted with His message to bring to us, and they fulfill that, and they make sure they fulfill that duty that is on them. The Prophet ﷺ, he would say, have I conveyed the message? And then they would say, the Sahabas, they would reply, yes. And he would keep repeating, have I? And then they would say, yes. So then he said to them, so bear witness that I have conveyed the message. So the Prophet ﷺ did that in Hijjatul Wida as well, in the final sermon, and he again asked those to bear witness that he has, and he asked, did he convey the message? And indeed he had. So in terms of amana, this he was called Al-Amin, so the one who's the trustworthy one. And even in battle, Ali radiallahu anhu is known to be the most courageous, the most bravest. But the Prophet ﷺ himself as well, at times he would be the focal point where the Muslims would gather around, and Ali radiallahu anhu, he would have that confidence and that trust when he saw the Prophet ﷺ, and that would return to trust, and that they would win the battle. In the Battle of Hunayn, there was a fierce battle. Muslims were all over this left, right, they were everywhere, and as if they were going to lose the battle. But the Prophet ﷺ, he himself, he was the one who went to the fore. He was the courageous and the brave one, and he gathered everyone around him. As he said, Ana Nabiyyu la kadhib, I am a prophet that does not lie. Ana ibn Abdul Muttalib, I am the son of Abdul Muttalib, his grandfather. So he was that focal point, he was the brave and courageous one, and that trustworthy one, Al-Amin, that everyone knew that from then they knew that they could win the battle. That trust was restored and confidence restored in the Muslims, and they did have the victory in the end. So the Prophet ﷺ had that, as all prophets did, of amana. They had that attribute of trustworthiness, and they did all deliver the message for who it was for. And of course the Prophet ﷺ, his message was for the whole of the universe, so it had to go to everyone, and that is the great job that Sahaba and then the Tabi'in and Tabi'in of the first three pious predecessors of that generation, and they did that great work that even us all over the world, wherever we may be, we are Muslims, and Muslims are all over the world. Which house has not entered Islam? And then the next line, now it talks about, so we saw in the 4 obligatory attributes for prophets, and then the 4 opposites, so that's 8 in total. Because the opposite of amana, trustworthy, is the one who is a deceiver and deceives, so that's not befitting of a prophet. Then we go on to the next line, and this is that attribute that it's as you said, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He can do or not do. It is that attribute that it is He is able to or not to. He decides as He wants, whether He wants to create or not create. That's that choice that is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, the prophets have that one attribute as well, which is a attribute that is not obligatory on them, but it's a attribute that that they have, and what it is simply وَجَائِزٌ فِي حَقِّهِمْ مِنْ عَرْضٍ بِغَيْرِ نَقْصٍ خَفِيفِ الْمَرَضِ. It is mentally impossible for them to be attributed taintlessly, so with slight illness. So giving an example, and that's slight illness. So main thing here is prophets are like people they sleep, they drink, they're in need of, they're thirsty, they want to drink, they move, they have movement, uh, they are happy, they get sad, they get lots of different feelings just like normal people. But of course they're not common, they're not the common people. These prophets, they are a different rank and they're above the rank of normal men, and that is the point, that they are similar, they have attributes to us and have been sent in the men form. The jinns, they are also the ones who have to be are duty bound, and but they do not have a prophet amongst them. So they are created for worship as humans. The clay form also being created for worship, but they do not have a prophet. The prophets are from the human form ones, and that's the prophets that we've covered. We will cover inshallah in coming episodes that the names of the ones, the 25 mentioned in the Quran, as well as we'll see the others that there's a difference of opinion on. So the prophets, they have this attribute that it's an attribute that they can be sick or they don't be sick. They have children, they don't. There's those who marry, there's who didn't marry, so that they feel pain as well. So these are like attributes that normal humans feel in a way. But of course, one thing is mentioned, the point of khafif al-marad, that but they get slight illness. So they do not get an illness that is people go away from them. So we have the story of Ayub alayhi salam. He is known from the Banu Israel, the Prophet who was sent to them, that he was known for that illness and the patience on that illness. But because from the Banu Israel, the Jews, those who became Muslim at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and as Islam was growing, they came with the stories, because in the Banu Israel, in their books, that it's they attribute Ayub alayhi salam to have that illness, that sickness, that people will go away from him. And no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not make any prophet slight sickness. They don't get sick that people will run away from. That what's the whole point? Because what's the point of that? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets to guide us and messengers to guide us, why would he send somebody who people run away from and go away from because some sickness on them, leprosy or whatever it may be? So the prophets are preserved from such things. They get slight sickness, but they do not get a full blown out illness or sickness that people run away from. So Ayyub alayhi salam, he is attributed with such a thing, but it was not such a thing. It says in the Quran, "In anni massani ash-shaytanu binusbin wa adhab." The shaitan has touched me with distress and torment. So this is only from the Banu Israel with their stories that have come down and then it's coming to the Islamic kind of stories, and from the scholars of the Banu Israel who became Muslims. That stories came from there. But we believe that Ayyub alayhi salam is not that he had a sickness that was such a heavy sickness or such a big thing that people run away from. Similarly with Yaqub alayhi salam, the father of Yusuf alayhi salam, he was attributed with, or he has that like the blindness, but he was blindness is not a thing that goes on to prophets. He had, yes, weak eyesight due to the crying, the excessive crying for the loss of his son, his beloved son Yusuf alayhi salam. And in the end, when Yusuf alayhi salam was now the prime minister of Egypt, and he had that task and he had that responsibility, and all the brothers, and they all became united once again, and obviously Yaqub alayhi salam, and he came to Misr as well, back to Egypt. So then Yaqub alayhi salam, his eyesight was restored, meaning his eyesight became strong again, from which he became sick. So that's the prophets, they do not get blind as such, they do not get any heavy illness that people run away from due to that. And then also prophets, they do not have things that like a cut nose, a broken lips, broken teeth, and bad smell emanating from them, all such kind of bad kind of qualities. No, they are like humans, like us. They have similar things, like how they feel with things, but they don't have things that people run away from, and they feel some kind of distress off, or they feel they take it kind of offends them in a way. So the prophets are safe from such things. We also have Musa alayhi salam, and he had stammering, so prophets also protect from stammering. Yes, he did have in his childhood, but when he became a prophet, he grew out of that, but he had that stammer, because as it comes in the Quran, Rabbi shrah li, as I said in the early in the beginning of this dars, in this lesson. رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِنْ لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُوا قَوْلِي. It says, "Oh Allah, open my chest, and رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي, open my chest, and to increase in knowledge. وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِنْ لِسَانِي, and to untie the knots in my speech," which is referring to stammering. So as if he had stammering in his speech. So and then of course he had his brother Harun alayhi salam, and Harun alayhi salam, but the thing is, did Harun alayhi salam go and speak? There's no evidence of him speaking to Fir'aun, and so if Musa alayhi salam was stammering, so he wouldn't be able to deliver the message. You know, you think Harun alayhi salam, he's also a prophet, his brother would go and speak to Fir'aun, but that doesn't come in any evidence of that. So Musa alayhi salam was the one who spoke to Fir'aun without this stammer, so there was no stammering. And as Allah Subhanahu says in the Quran, قَالَ قَدْ أُوتِيتُ سُؤْلَكَ يَا مُوسَى, that what you asked for, you know, is being given. So he was given that speech, that untied of these knots, that he was in the state of stammering in a way as he was young, that he grew out of it, and Allah had accepted that dua of his. So these are the 4 attributes that are obligatory in prophets, but then there's an attribute that is like a permissible thing. They can do or they can't do. They get married, they don't get married, they get hurt, they don't get hurt. That's one attribute of prophets. So that it is mentally impossible for them to be attributed taintlessly with slight illness. So anything that is without deficiency, whatever attributes they have as humans, is without deficiency. The Prophet ﷺ also forgetting. So in terms of delivering the message, in terms of conveying the tabligh of the message, they will never forget all that they have to be delivering. That we will make you recite, so we will not forget. And the Prophet ﷺ was not made to forget in anything that he had to deliver and had to give. But of course, the Prophet ﷺ in his lifetime, 6 times he forgot. As it comes in a hadith in Bukhari Sharif, يَرْحَمُهُ اللَّهُ لَقَدْ أَذْكَرَنِي كَذَا وَكَذَا آيَةً كُنْتُ أُنْسِيتُهَا مِنْ سُورَةٍ كَذَا وَكَذَا. That when he heard some Sahaba, he was reciting some verses from the Quran, that the Prophet he remembered something from, when he remembers a surah from it, when he was reciting that, he remembered something else from that. So the Prophet said, "Oh Allah, may Allah bestow mercy upon him, who reminded me of such an ayah." But the Prophet he did not forget anything that he had to deliver. None of the prophets, whatever they had to deliver, they made sure the mission was complete, and they delivered what had to be delivered from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty. So these are now all the things about prophets. We still continue just a little bit more about prophets before we go into the as-sami'iyat, and we'll see that in the next episode.